Hello everybody, thank you for joining me. I hope everyone is doing well. I hope you all are doing better than me. I am still dealing with some health issues, but you know what? I say that in all my videos, like when am I not? But 2020 is just a real bitch, as we have all noticed by now. I was actually going to record and upload this video on the anniversary of the release of the film Jaws, but then I ended up in hospital having surgery, so that went out the window and here we are. So I'm sorry this is late, but here it is nonetheless, so sit back as I give you my ranking of the Jaws films from worst to best. In fourth place is Jaws 3, also known as Jaws 3D, released in 1983 and directed by Joe Alves, with a screenplay by Kyle Gottlieb and Richard Matheson, from a story by Gordon Trueblood. It is the second sequel to Jaws and the third installment in the Jaws franchise. In it, the Brody children are now grown up and residing at SeaWorld. As the park prepares for its opening, a young great white shark infiltrates the park from the sea, seemingly attacking and killing the park's employees. Once the shark is captured, it becomes apparent that it was a second, much larger shark who also entered the park that was the real culprit. This is still so hilarious, but not the good kind. The 3D aspect is just terrible, and this for me is the worst in the franchise. The performances are great, but aside from character names and one reference, it doesn't feel like it is connected to the previous films. I don't enjoy the baby shark and mama shark, and the mama shark is just horrible. In the majority of its scenes, it's either just in the water stationary, not remotely moving, yet people are freaking out like it's swimming at them, or we're watching a photo of a shark being moved across the screen like it's coming right at you. It's so bad. If you ignore the 3D aspects, it is a well-made movie and it does have good performances. It's just really stupid everywhere else. But I do love the dolphins who save the day. Those were some awesome dolphins. In third place is Jaws: The Revenge. Released in 1987, it's directed by Joseph Sargent with a screenplay by Michael de Guzman. It is a third sequel and fourth and final installment in the Jaws franchise. A now widowed Ellen Brody is convinced that a great white shark is seeking revenge on her family, particularly when it kills her son and follows her to the Bahamas. Yes, the plot is ludicrous. The psychic link between Ellen and the shark, the idea of the shark wanting revenge, the shark managing to follow her from a nice little island town in the US to the Bahamas, all freaking nuts. But great performances, is a much better sequel and continuation from the second film, with plenty of references to it to make it feel like a smoother transition, and the effects for the shark are far superior to Jaws 3D. I don't think a third or fourth film of a shark hunting the same family, or the family again coming into contact with great whites by pure bad luck, was ever going to be an amazing film. But I feel like this one tries to go back into the old film's roots. It has the family storyline like the first two films, there is character growth and development, it is truly connected to the first two films, and has a small tribute to Roy Scheider, and like I said, this shark actually looks really good and effective. I especially love how the opening of this film really emulates that suspense and style used in the first two films, but mostly the original. I appreciate when a film goes back to basics, because if it ain't broke, don't fix it, because 3D stylistically was a train wreck. In second place is Jaws 2, released in 1978, it's directed by Juno Jouark and written by Kyle Gottlieb and Howard Sackler. It is a sequel to the 1975 film and the second installment in the Jaws franchise. In it, Chief Brody suspects another great white shark is terrorizing the fictional seaside resort of Amity Island, following a series of incidents and disappearances. It's a completely unnecessary sequel, it's a clear cash grab, and it feels crazy just to even have the concept where it's like lightning striking twice in the same spot. Nevertheless, it follows on from the first very well. Chief Brody feels weathered from his previous experiences, where he comes off as someone with PTSD. Despite being the town hero, he isn't treated as such, and as soon as he goes around yelling shark, people see him as crazy. The people of this town haven't learned. They're still the type of people more concerned with profit and summer fun than their own safety. And with what we're all experiencing with COVID, we're realizing Jaws 1 and 2 were 100% accurate. People are just that dumb and selfish. The shark effects were still really good, they were at the same quality as the first film, and it did use a lot of the same scares, so while they weren't as shocking the second time around, they are still effective. I like that the personal stakes are upped in this film. It's not 3 guys out hunting for a shark, it's a group of kids stranded in the ocean at the mercy of a shark, and 2 of them are Brody's sons, so that makes it personal for our lead. Ultimately, I still enjoy this film, though I do wish there was something in it to explain why great whites seem to love this little island. Is it the water? Is it the sea life in the area? Like, what makes great whites keep coming back to Amity? I want to know. And in first place is Jaws. Released in 1975, it's directed by Steven Spielberg with a screenplay by Peter Benchley and Carl Gottlieb, based on the 1974 novel of the same name by Peter Benchley. In this, a giant man-eating great white shark attacks beachgoers on Amity Island, a fictional New England summer resort town, prompting Police Chief Martin Brody to hunt it with the help of a marine biologist and professional shark hunter. If you haven't seen this classic, then I'd be shocked. It's still an absolute classic and masterpiece, great build-up and suspense, great story, fantastic performances. The threat is always present, and so is that feeling, even though we don't see the actual shark for quite a while into the film, which is something I wish horror and thriller films would start doing more of again. Most of them feel the need to have the villain on screen immediately or present at all times, and most of the time when you do that, it loses impact very fast. This film takes its time. We see several attacks but no shark itself. The audience is given a chance to imagine for themselves what is lurking beneath the surface, and that makes it so terrifying. The not knowing is what builds the suspense, and then when we finally see the shark for the first time, it's in a way that stays in your mind and makes you go, holy shit. Not to mention the iconic score by John Williams. For most of us, we grow up knowing this score even before we see the film. It's amazing how just a couple of notes could instill such fear into moviegoers and still gives you chills when you hear it. You hear those notes and you feel your heart pound. You could probably play that to someone in the bathtub and they'd freak the fuck out. Also, I can't not praise Bruce. Bruce was the name given to the shark prop that was constructed, named after Spielberg's lawyer. That's really funny. This was an amazingly realistic looking shark made in the 1970s. Today we just get really bad CGI sharks that are stupid, but this was believable. I spent most of my childhood believing that was a real shark until someone told me otherwise. Just an overall incredible film and production that is, for lack of a better term, iconic. And that is the Jaws films ranked from worst to best. I think the only aspect of this ranking that might be surprising to most people is me not putting The Revenge last. I know many consider it to be the worst film in the franchise, but I don't know how you can when 3D exists. It's the worst 3D ever. It is literally just a shark in slow motion, or a picture of a shark moving in slow motion, and I still don't know how a man managed to get eaten by a shark that was trapped in a filter and couldn't move. Like, he pretty much swam into its mouth of his own accord. It's just dumb as hell and really feels like a solo movie or a spin-off. But anyway, that is my ranking and I stand by it. Please comment below and tell me how you would rank the films in the Jaws franchise. I would love to hear your thoughts. Thank you as always to my wonderful patrons for the continued support, especially in these hard times. And that is it for today's video, and until next time, bye!